This is Pampanito, World War II submarine. And just beyond it there is the Jeremiah O'Brien, World War II cargo ship. This is Jim Delfino of Cloverdale, California. And he is a veteran of World War II and saw service on submarines. What submarine were you on, Jim?
The Tunny, USS Tunny, 282.
What was the number of the Tunny?
282.
282, okay. Well, we've come down to San Francisco today. There's Alcatraz out here. And we're going to go aboard the Pampanito, which is a World War II submarine. It's a little different class than the one Jim was on, but I think he's going to be able to tell us a lot about it, about submarine duty. And there's a crewman on the bow there right now, old Seagull. What were those dimensions, Jim?
With the ballast tanks, it's 27 feet in width. But as far as the living quarters and the heavy metal structure, it's only 17 feet inside.
Uh-huh. What's the length of...
This is 315 feet long.
This is 315?
Yeah.
And the Tunny was longer than that, you said?
Yeah, a little bit longer, about 335, I think.
Uh-huh. Well, that's a lot of length for the width.
Fun?
Go ahead.
Yeah, this is the bow planes, and they work very much like an airplane does. Tip them to go down or tip them up to go up. And we have stern planes as well for stabilizing as well.
You just used it when you were submerged, though.
Use them when you're submerged only. Yeah, they're folded up and out of the way. And if you're in mine detection, mine gear places or things like that, they have some boats that are specially guarded so that the mines may deflect, the cables deflect off of it and not get tangled up.
Where were those cables attached when you were in the Sea of Japan?
They're right anchored in the bottom, right at the bottom of the Sea of Japan.
Well, I know, but where were the cables that were attached to the sub?
Oh, they would start out right in here, and they would span out. They had arms welded so that the cable would deflect along the cable around the bow planes and back and follow the contour of the submarine.
The cable went the full length of the sub then?
The full length of the sub, and then also to keep it from tangling with the propellers at the back. Those were shrouded as well.
Yeah.
You're seeing on board, just forward of the conning tower, a 5-inch deck gun, and above that to the left you'll see a 20-millimeter machine gun, and there's a 50 caliber on the rear. Then they use 30 caliber on handheld too sometimes when they're surface battling.
Tell us about the conning tower there.
The conning tower is a control area above a control area, and usually used when we're on the surface. Underneath it has very little value. Underneath you would handle it from the below in the control room below deck. And then you have your periscope 1, periscope 2 to go up in your radar, your radio antennas.
Is one of those an exhaust stack?
No.
Diesel engine's exhaust?
No.
Where was that?
They poured out of openings that are hydraulically sealed on a diving, sound of the diving alarm there. We don't dive unless we've got a green board showing all all outdoor openings are sealed, and when a green board indicates that. If you have a red light, you have an outlet, an opening somewhere, and would be the ability to flood into the sub.
Well, there are two periscopes.
The two periscopes is just a backup. Everything has a backup on submarines. At least two, and most times three ways of doing something.
Tell me about that broom sticking up there.
The broom means a clean sweep. That you have success.
Fore and aft?
Yeah,
Oh, I see.
In other words, you've had success in getting some of the enemy while you're out there, or whatever your mission was.
Come into port showing that means you had a good patrol, huh?
A good patrol.
Yeah.
We call it a clean sweep. And when you come in, there's usually a band. There's usually people waiting for you. There's fresh foods to eat, milk, vegetables, mail, and all of the goodies.
Happy time for everybody.
Happy time.
And if you're at Pearl Harbor,
Right.
Royal Hawaiian coming up.
Right. Royal Hawaiian was the hotel put aside for submariners.
Right. Costs a fortune to stay there these days.
Yes. Yeah.
I think during the war, somebody said something about before the war, the cost was $25 a room. That seems like nothing these days, but probably expensive before the war.
We usually get about two weeks of recuperation, gain our weight back that we lost during patrols, and fortify our bodies a little bit, do our repairs and necessaries before we go out again for another 75 or 80 days.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't Pearl Harbor, it was usually Australia, and we'd go to a little town called Toowoomba for that rest period. And
Did you ever go to
2,000 feet up.
Ever go to New Zealand?
New Zealand? Yeah. Right close to it. Yeah, this is the after torpedo room. Has 4 of the torpedo tubes on this. Plus they carry 4 spare torpedoes that you see on the side here in the background shortly. And you'll see these drop bunks. Those are the ones we sleep on. And there's usually another set of those drop bunks down here above this lower torpedo here. So you're looking pretty close to the bottom of this.
If you're a little guy, you can do it, huh?
Yeah, and that's where he was playing with the little wheel until he accidentally armed the torpedo on one of our patrols. The young fellow just starting on the first trip. Didn't know what that little wheel was for.
Something they didn't teach him in school, huh?
And actually this bunk right here is the bunk that I slept in myself. Well, not this particular boat, but on the Tunny.
Yeah.
This particular one right
That
here.
was your bunk, huh? You didn't have a torpedo over you?
No. I have the ceiling. And I have, there was a block and tackle up there on that hook up there to lift these torpedoes over on the rack to slide them into the tubes.
Uh-huh.
The block and tackle doesn't show here, but the eye for it does. That thing jumped out of the eye. We had it open on our boat. It was open on one end. It jumped out on a depth charge deal. Came down, broke my bunk chain, dropped me to the deck.
Oh, my.
It was so heavy. Fortunately, I didn't get hurt too badly. And the room past this one going towards the front of the boat is, the next room is called the maneuvering room.
And that was your position during battle.
Yeah, that was my position as far as battle stations and during maneuvering or any hazardous type deals. That was my position, to be at the maneuvering.
Right. Well, let's go in there and you can tell us all about it. Well, you're going to have to tell us about this little room.
This is a bathroom. And on the Tunny, it's not past this gate, it's past this hatch. It's on the other side in the corner. And there's a lot of times when you're under a high task of some kind of a battle or activity going on that you didn't have time to go to the bathroom.
I guess. If you're a little guy, you can get through these doors.
This is the maneuvering room, and we have enunciators on the port side and starboard side here, and also tachometers for the props, the propellers, up here, or the screws, and they indicate the RPMs, or the revolutions per minute, on the propellers. And whatever enunciation is given us, we go ahead and operate and meet that command with these levers here. There's a generator bus and there's a battery bus. There's a step start lever for step starting the motors up to speed. And you can put some of the generators onto charging the batteries while you have a couple of generators running the propellers on the generator bus. Two large diesels, they're 1,050 horsepower. On the Tunny that I was on, they're bigger. They're 1,500 horsepower. It's a little bigger boat than this one. These are, even though you have engineers handling the diesel engines, all they do is turn the generator. The propulsion of the boat is done electrically through this cubicle, which is on the other side of this here metering setup here. And these levers will change those contacts to do the various things that you want the boat to do. And these control the actual diesel engines right here. In other words, your engine 1, 2, 3, 4, you can go ahead, bring it up to the RPM that you want. If you're going to bring in 2, you've got to match the RPM exactly before you can bring it in. You go ahead and do this one and so on. If you have all 4 on the line, then you go ahead and flip these levers and you can raise all 4 engines. They're up forward now. The big diesels that run the generators. You can turn them, bring up their RPMs together with the center one here. If you have a diving alarm, sound, urga, you reach up for that 200-pound lever real quick and you kill those engines. And you stop the fuel from going into them, and the diesels will stop. If they don't stop, it only takes about a few seconds, and they'll vaporize the air inside here where you can't even see your hand in front of your face. And if it goes on a few more seconds, it may even suck you inside out. They take the air from in here to try to run the engines. So you got to be real quick with that one. This other lever here is your incoming fresh air. And you trip that, and that darn thing falls down. You better not be under it because it'll really do you in.
What?
Yeah.
This?
So those two things,
Oh, I see.
Then you go ahead and you throw your levers off of the generator bus, you get back onto the battery bus, and you go ahead and put out whatever amount of motors you want on, and you start step starting back again and get them to go to the command that you're given at that time. It all has to be done in precision, because these have 10,000 amp overloads on the motors. And if you go ahead and start bringing them in too fast, they'll exceed that 10,000 amp and they'll shut down. And then it takes you about 7 or 8 seconds to reset those and get back on the line. And 7 or 8 seconds on a sub is like 7 or 8 years. So it has to be really precise.
Jim, this would be a good time to tell about the incident you were telling me about this morning, when you went against the captain's orders
Oh. Yeah, well, we went out. We were over at off of Palau, and a little Smoky Joe subcarrier dropped some torpedoes on us and bent our bow, not torpedoes, I mean depth charges, and bent our bow a foot out of alignment and everything, and broke our bow planes off that you see outside in the front of the boat. So it forced us to go back to the United States for a major repair. We went to Hunters Point, and they sabotaged us at Hunters Point while they were doing the repairs. We didn't know this, though. So they were supposedly done, and we went out for trial runs outside the Golden Gate, and that's the closest, I guess, we ever came to losing the boat and all our men. We went into a dive, which is normally 10 degrees. It went into a 60-degree down angle. The only way I could operate the levers was to hold on to these where I'd fall on my face, because you couldn't stand up at a 60-degree angle. They sabotaged the ballast, so we were heavy on the bow and light on the back. I had an annunciator reading of all ahead standard on both engines.
That would have been the captain's orders.
Under captain's orders right there. And that's what I was going by, that all ahead standard. So I'm on the battery bus, and we're going down on a dive at all ahead standard and a 60-degree angle, and we have a depth gauge. I don't know where it is on this sub exactly, but mine was over in this area, probably right in here. One of these is a depth gauge. And we can only do 600 feet. If you go 600 feet, it crushes like an egg. You've had it. So it got to 400 feet. We're going down like this yet. Annunciator hasn't changed. They had sabotaged the communication between him and me, so he couldn't get back to me to tell me what to do. So it sort of left me in a bad position. You have the senior controlman takes care of the first 6 levers, and you have those 4 levers to a junior controlman over here to help try to do all this stuff going on. When it got down to about 550 feet, I just pushed my junior controlman out of my way and took over the whole board, threw it off, came back into reverse. I put in about an all-ahead slow on it in reverse. The boat shuddered like this. In the meantime, while this is all going on, the skipper's blowing all the ballast out of the tanks, trying to get us up. And when I stopped to check the descent, we went up. We come 10 feet out of the water when we came up. And I thought for sure, a court-martial for me to go against command. But he came back and said, by God, he says, you sure thought of that one, and I'm sure glad. He was happy about that.
And what did he do? He did something when he came back.
He gave me a bear hug, yeah.
Saved you and saved the boat, saved the captain, saved everybody.
Yeah. Well, it was a decision that had to be made.
Yeah.
And it looks like a cockpit of an airplane, but it's basically not. It's just your generator voltages show, and you go ahead and run your field strength stuff on your individual motors to pick up the load, to equalize them. The diesels run the generators. The generators come into the cubicle and supply the power. We control it from here. From here, it goes through electric motors that down below here that pick up the propeller shafts through a reduction gear. But it's basically all electric drive. And it has to be, because when we dive, we're on batteries. It'll run it once as a motor, it damages the engines, blow up your engines. But you'll see on the pretty big engines in the next compartment is the after engine.
So it works kind of like a locomotive.
Yeah. Then I think you come in after that to the after battery room. There's a forward and after battery room. The batteries are big. They're as big as he is and as tall as he is. And they're down below the deck. You go down there with a hose, like a gas pump hose, and water them once in a while. And it's about that much clearance when you do that. And sometimes it's DC leakage, and you hit your head on the ceiling, and you see the prettiest colored stars you ever seen in your life. Red ones, blue ones, green ones. And you're going over a rubber mat to try to keep them getting, electrocuted. Because the bunks aren't all in here that they sleep in. But we had 125 men, so there's a lot of bunks. There's only about a 30-inch aisle that you can walk back and forth through these hatches.
Okay. That lever was what, Jim?
This here shuts the opening to the outer hull for incoming fresh air induction. It has to be closed on dive, sounded dive. Many of them are closed hydraulically, but there are some key ones like this that have to be done manually as well as hydraulically to be sure it's closed.
And then tell me about that red handled one up there again.
And the red handled one is to, on the sound of a diving alarm, is the first thing you do is you reach for that, trip it, and it shuts down the 4 large Fairbanks Morse diesel engines, rather large, in the forward interim and the aft interim. There are 4 of those. And it shuts them down, cuts off the electrical supply back here. We go on a battery bus next and take over whatever command is given to us from up at the control room.
And let's see, you said those 4 knobs with one in the middle were the motor controls?
These will work the RPM of all 4 of those diesel engines. And we can individually increase or decrease them. We have to try to match the RPMs before we ever put them on the line together, or else one will just take from the other and cause some damage. Once you get them all orientated, if you want the all 4 engines, or 2 or 3, whatever, you shift this little lever over on these handles here, and you can work them all at the same time, up and down, as far as RPM is concerned. In electrical engineering, in order for us to be able to cope with this a little better, we were there for 5 or 6 months. They had taken the seats out of one of the dormitories. We even lived there in the university of Minnesota. And then they sent us to New London, Connecticut for training on actual submarines. And then they sent us to Midway Island to repair submarines while we waited to catch one. So you lose part of your time on just getting there. And all in all, about 3 years on the sub itself.
So you saw action for 3 years,
Yeah.
and you came out of it alive.
Yes.
And he was on it clear to the end of the war.
Yes.
And one of the interesting things he was involved with was called Operation Barney. Tell him about that, Jim.
Well, the Nelson's Hells Angels? Yeah.
Huh?
Went into the impenetrable sea of Japan.
Yeah.
They called 9. There were 9 submarines. There were 360 submarines. We lost 180 of them, half of them. 9 of them were specially equipped, and we happened to be one of the unfortunate 9 that were equipped with mine detection equipment. So we did specialty work as well as sinking ships. We would plot minefield after minefield under very dangerous situations. We were specially shrouded so their cables couldn't get caught in our propellers or into our bow planes or stern planes. Sometimes we would hit them, a mine cable, and we would start dragging the mine down towards us. You could hear it going along the side of the sub. And that's when these annunciators and these levers are going like crazy to try, because the mine detection gear that we had was supposed to notify us 300 feet in advance.
Right.
It would sometimes fail and notice as low as 25 feet or even 10 feet sometimes ahead of us. The skipper would give an all-ahead emergency to me, or all-ahead flank, they call it here, on these annunciators, on the port screw, and all-ahead on the starboard screw to try to twist the boat around. And then you could hear the cable clonking like that. And then he would reverse that command. And like I was telling, we had to wait until the RPMs on the propellers, which those was the one there for that, the port one and the starboard one, get down to 150 RPM before I can do that, or it would trip me out. Now we would be dead in the water. And things are real exciting situations. They have to be done so precisely. And through those minefields, that's all you're doing. You're just going like crazy. You're just like
Well,
going.
tell them about this thing in the Sea of Japan, though. Well, you were going through minefields there, but what was the 9 subs doing in there?
Well, we went in there to stop the troop transporting from Japan over to the Asian side, and we went in. They called it the impenetrable Sea of Japan, and it was pretty well impenetrable. But because we were the 9 that had mine detection gear, of course we were the ones chosen to go. They lined us up in Pearl Harbor on the deck, all 9 crews, and they said we expect to lose 5 of the subs out of the 9. Anybody that chooses not to go, if you step forward, there will be no questions asked. It'll be perfectly fine. Well, one man felt that he didn't want to go out of the 9 crew, and we went through it. We managed to get through the southern entrance into the Sea of Japan, but it was hairy. There were a lot of mines, and we went through what I just got through explaining. And then while we were in there, we sank 46 ships, and we did a lot of damage. But anyway, not just our boat, but between the 9. When it came time to leave, they had further mined the southern entrance to the point where even with our equipment we had no way of getting out. So we had to go through the straits, the upper straits of the Sea of Japan, through a quarter of a mile strait to get back out into the ocean area. And so we met up there and decided that we'd blow all our ballasts and everything, and et cetera. We'd probably clear the mines by about 6 inches. So you're playing it by the hair, And anyway, we went through. But we happened to be, the Hellcats were 9 boats. They were individually called the Polecats and the Bobcats, and what was the other one? Anyway, another name for a cat. And our group of 3.
But not Pampanito. Was she there too?
No.
No,
she
it's
was
not on
right.
that. It was on sub. He was on the Tunny.
It says 282, the Tunny, a little bigger boat.
Yeah.
Anyway, where was I? Anyway, we're leaving.
Getting out.
Yeah, we're leaving out of the northern entrance, and we were the last group of 3, the polecats. We were called polecats, and our Captain Pierce was in charge. Tony was in charge of that group of 3.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're the last 3 to go, and the order was that the boat ahead of you blew up, change your course. As simple as that, But we didn't. We lost the last one in our group, the bonefish. So, and we don't know. We got out, and he never came out.
Going.
And we only lost 1 boat. And we waited there for 2 days, and he still didn't come out. We were talking about going back in to look for him, and and then they broke silence and said it was sunk. All hands lost. So I don't know. Intelligence figured that out, I guess.
How old were you when all this was happening?
I joined when I was 17, and I left when I was 21.
And he lived to tell about it.
Incredible.
That's wonderful.
I know.
That's wonderful. Good for you.
That was
Thank
very
you very
interesting.
much.
Thank you very much. Appreciated that.
You bet.
All right.
Well, unless you want to look around here some more.
This is the maneuvering room.
Jim, what are those 2 things up there? Say
Oh,
forward and aft.
That's your CFM. That's the airflow through here.
Uh-huh.
That's the airflow, indicating the airflow. Air change.
Well, shall we
Go on.
proceed on through the boat?
Okay, we'll be passing the cubicle that have all of the operating contacts that are controlled by these levers.
Mm-hmm.
That's immediately to your right. And if you look in there, it's pretty close quarters, and you have to work in there once in a while. and it's dangerous. In fact, one boat had their electrician go in there to make a repair, and he ended up with 3 holes in his head that you could put a golf ball into each hole.
Burned in it from electrical contact?
DC will burn you terribly.
Yeah.
It doesn't push you off like AC, it just burns you. Now, you'll be coming into the after engine room now.
All I got to do is get through this hatch.
Now, these engines look so much smaller than ours. These are 1,050 horsepower. They're Fairbanks Morse diesel engines. There are 2 of them in the after engine room and 2 in the forward engine room. And their main purpose and only purpose is to turn the generators. Ours was more massive, but they were 1,500 horsepower.
These are
1,050.
a good bit bigger then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ours would produce enough electricity to handle the city of about 10,000 people. And we go back, that electricity goes back into that cubicle of the room that we just came from, and then we can control it to do what we choose with the levers.
Charge the batteries or...
Charge the batteries, we put 2 engines on batteries, 2 engines on propulsion, etc.
Right. And run all your lights, yeah. And to give you a bit of storage, something to store up as well.
Right.
Yeah.
What damage was done to the hearing of the people who operated these engine rooms? Was the noise is tremendous?
The noise is tremendous in here, but they had just cotton plugs or rubber plugs in their ears, that's all. And
Did they have any permanent damage done to the hearing, the ones who survived?
I'm sure there is.
There must be.
To some degree, you know.
Yes.
I'm sure there is, yes. But we didn't have the knowledge of...
No.
Yeah, you didn't know. It's like asbestos. You didn't know at the time, yeah.
Everything advanced a little better as it went along. You know. Like I say, on the nuclear stuff, I walked up a flight of stairs, and I can't even believe that.
Was this the main con tower? Was it? No. The main con tower is...
The control room is
further along.
a couple of more compartments along.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And you'll see in there air manifolds to blow the tanks dry if we want to surface or to... And you'll see a lot of valves that operate hydraulically to flood the tanks so that we go down.
Right. Yeah.
And then you end up with 2 tanks, a control tank and a safety tank. What you're after is to get positive buoyancy, so you don't have to keep playing with the levers all the time. You creep up, you crawl. Pretty hard to get positive buoyancy.
Yeah.
But sometimes you're in a little bit of trouble where negative buoyancy is too fast. And these will only go 600 feet and they'll crush these boats. So you have to have the safety tank. You have a control tank first when you see that, and if that doesn't do it, you have a safety tank, and you blow that to try to get the trim into positive buoyancy. And that it's a pretty busy
600 under...
right from one end to the other. I mean, everybody has a very important duty.
How many men on board? Sorry, Al.
There was 95 men on this and about 8 officers, 8 or 9 officers. And on ours, it was 125 men and about 8 or 9 officers.
So this one could only go down 600 feet before it...
600 feet.
Before it crushed.
Sometimes if we were getting down where near crush, we would start letting pressure into the boat. We had 3,000-pound air to blow the tanks.
Right.
And we start putting pressure in the boat to hold the walls out. But your body can only take so much of that. And maybe you get another 50 feet or something like that.
Yeah.
Scary
I
stuff.
know.
Scary stuff. Can we go on?
Yeah.
On the depth charge, I might explain that because it's interesting. When you're being depth charged, you'll hear tick, and then the length of time between the tick and the boom is how close they're getting to you. And so if you don't hear the tick, you've had it. And the tick is the detonator, and the explosion is the boom part. And what it does is it makes a big air cavity around the sub. Then when it stops, the water rushes in to replace it. And that's what all this deal is about the boat when you're trying to hold yourself up. That's
It's
it.
just like a big creates a vacuum and then brings it.
The other interesting thing is the pinging. That's them sending a radar signal hitting your hull and going back to tell them where you are. And you hear this.
You can actually hear that.
Yeah.
And you can do a thing about it. Try and move out the way.
You know they're on you. They're close. Yeah.
Would you like to go on a submarine during wartime?
No, thank you.
I wouldn't
No,
either.
I
thank
don't
you.
think I could, no.
To the sense that it's in an explosive state, then you're not allowed to smoke. Sometimes there have been errors, and a flame did cause that hydrogen to go off. And what it does, it just puts a big ball of fire clean through the entire sub, burns the hair off your eyes or your head. I mean, there are other dangers that have nothing to do with the war.
Yes.
In other words.
So everyone would get burned, but it wouldn't be...
It would just burn itself out.
It's a
Whoosh.
flash. Yeah,
Yes, flash.
Yeah, but... And then...
Never happened to you, Jim?
No. Now, we've had it where another one is serious. The engines, these draw a lot of air from the outside, engine air induction. You'll see that in the control room. It's a Christmas tree. When we get there, we're still around, I'll explain that Christmas tree to you. But what it does is tell you whether the openings to the outside are closed. If they are closed, it's green. If they're not, it's red. But they suck a lot of air. And when you dive, if you don't trip that lever quick enough, the engineers are trying to kill it too with their levers. But we always have two ways of doing something, and two and probably a lot of them three ways of doing it. So we both don't want to kill the engines. That's the first thing we're thinking of. If we don't get those closed, and these engines are still running when you close the inductions, they'll suck within the boat, and they'll vaporize the air where you can't even see your hand in front of your face. I mean, you can't see 2 inches away from you. And another 2 or 3 seconds, it'll start sucking you.
Really?
Yeah. So there's a lot of other dangers. In other words, you gotta be. You can't be dreaming. Can't be daydreaming. Don't belong in a sub. You want to daydream. Forward engine room, making the total of the 4 diesel engines spoken of back in the maneuvering room that we control. As far as speed is concerned, they have engineers in each one of these compartments as far as the mechanics are concerned.
But they were controlled from back there.
But they're controlled from back there, yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is a pretty spacious area here.
Yeah.
I see they provided a fan up there to circulate the air a little bit.
Yeah.
This little fan up there.
Yeah. They have engineer induction they have induction in all of these for air.
Uh-huh.
But most of them, I say, are hydraulically closed.
This looks like a horn. Is that the diving alarm by any chance?
That's the diving alarm right there. The engines are loud, so I think...
The one that went... tell me how it went. What it sounded like.
Erga! Erga! That's the diving. And then it's 3 times to surface.
So what you see on television and so on is fairly accurate as far as how it sounds, huh?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Now we're going in to the after battery room.
The after battery room. That means the rear battery room.
Oh, they put the bunks in. Now you can know. Before it had the bunks out, it looked like there was a lot of room. This is our laundry to do our clothes. These are showers. We're only allowed 1 minute in the shower.
1 minute. Who timed you?
Well, they've left up to our honesty. You got to soap and rinse and get out of there in 1 minute.
Doors are locked. Do not force. It says.
Water is a commodity.
Yeah, I guess.
We can make
Well, this is quite a good-sized bunk room here.
Yeah, this is the after battery room, and this is the main. We have a forward battery room as well as this. We'll be coming up on.
Batteries below the deck.
And batteries are below the deck. And batteries are. There's 250 some odd batteries in each one of them.
And what's the dimensions of a battery?
Dimensions, I would say the batteries are about 18 by 18 by about 60 inches high.
60? Oh boy. And they're lead-acid batteries, I think, aren't they?
Lead-acid batteries. You have to water them just like you do others, only you use a garden hose and a big faucet like you were pumping gas out of a gas station.
Oh.
And you can see that with the bunks in, there isn't an awful lot of walking
About 24 bunks in here.
Yeah. Very little walking space, just enough to get through the hatches.
Mm-hmm.
The next compartment will be the crew's mess. And by mess we mean where we eat.
Where you eat. I wonder how it came to be called that.
I don't know.
A lot more light in here.
But look at this, we got Monroe on the wall, no?
Game boards imprinted on the tables.
This is where we're fed. We eat with plates, forks, knives, just like home. I mean, no buffet type deal. We're treated very well, and we eat very well.
Could you order your T-bone steaks any way you wanted them?
At first, but until they run out, 75 days out, you get pretty low on food, and the selection gets less. But I mean, we do eat well.
Why don't you sit down over there, Jim, on the other side of that one?
Yeah, and we also, there's a chessboard for checkers, and we played quite a bit of it.
Well, that's probably not the only kind of games that were played in here.
We played poker, too. And, but it's nice, and the cookers is great. I mean, we eat 3 meals a day, we eat them good. During the night, the cook has snacks for us. If we're in action, under battle, where it's silent running, there's no cooking because there can't be any noise. It's silent running.
Yeah.
You can't bang pots and things. So, but the cook will make sandwiches for you and bring them back to your station and feed you at your station. And there's usually, if you're not in battle station and it's in between meals, the cook always has some donuts for you, or a cake or something, coffee pot going. I mean, it's just like home.
Well, how many? You'd probably have to eat in shifts, wouldn't you? There's only about space for.
Yeah, you eat in shifts.
About usually, 3 on each side of a table here.
Yeah. Usually, a normal operation, we're on shift 4 hours off about 8. We have 3 shifts to change around. If we're in battle stations, the number 1 shift stays until he drops. I mean, they don't take the 2nd or 3rd station for us unless they have to. And it's a matter of qualification getting there.
Well, I'll sit down here with you. Sounds like we got World War II music going up here.
Yeah. When we were in the Sea of Japan, we picked up Charlie, who's a prisoner, a Japanese prisoner, floating around. He was floating around on a suitcase, the corner of a suitcase, drunk tight, for almost a week. And his skin was all split and cracked from the sun and the salt. And we took him aboard. We tried to take a lot of prisoners aboard, but they didn't want to come because they were afraid that we would do some harm to him.
Yeah.
Actually, we treated Charlie like he was one of our brothers.
Mm-hmm.
And
well,
They brought him in to eat here, his meal, and his guard came with him. The guard with his .45 Colt and his holster. Put it on the table. When he left, he forgot his gun. Charlie came back and got his gun and brought it to him and handed it to him. So.
Well, Gay LeBaron told a story about that, like that, about German prisoners of war in Sonoma County.
Then when we brought Charlie back in from the Sea of Japan and back into Pearl Harbor, 13 Marines came down, put a bag over his face and drawstring around his neck so he couldn't see nothing. They all had machine guns and they dragged him off somewhere. We never have seen Charlie since.
Well,
we treated our prisoners good.
Well, was he pretty well behaved while he was on the
He
submarine?
was well behaved. He watched me in the maneuvering room. Night after night he'd sit in that hatch and watch me. Pretty soon he was trying to tell me that I think I can do that.
Oh. Well, could he speak some English?
No,
No.
he couldn't. But I felt that's what he was trying to tell me. But he was 16. And
Is that all?
actually, yeah, he was 16 years old. But he's classified in Japan as 17. They're a year old when they're born.
Oh. Well, at least 9 months.
Yeah. So you consider himself a year old when they're born.
What sort of a ship had he been on?
He was on one of the merchant ships that were sunk. There's 46 ships sunk while we were in there.
Yeah.
Not a particular boat, but between all 9.
Yeah. Well, this is probably about the roomiest one spot on the sub, isn't it? This room right here. Where does this hatch here go?
Just through a hatch up the deck.
Well, sort of an emergency escape hatch, or?
Well, if we're flooded or something, and we're down and we're in shallow enough water, which we hardly ever was, we'd be in water that you'd crush before you could use your Monson lungs. And you can't use your Monson lungs for over 150 feet or so anyway.
Did you have Monson lungs on board?
Oh, yeah. In fact, when you go through New London, Connecticut training, they have a tower 150 feet high with locks at every 25 feet to pull you out of it if you get in trouble. And you have to make 3 escapes before you can even qualify.
Well, this was access to the deck then, in case for whatever, huh?
Yeah, well, yeah, they get their Monson lung and they can get that hatch open if we're in shallow enough water.
Well, where are we? About a third of the way down the boat, or towards the bow?
About halfway, right?
Halfway. So, well, let's see, we're not under the conning tower yet, then.
Now, the next room is the control room and we'll be under the conning tower.
Okay. Jim's little, he can get through these doors.
First room to your right here, is the radio room.
Okay. Let me take a picture of the galley here.
It seems now it's so archaic.
Sort of dark in this room. I don't know whether we'll take much video or not.
You about what? See, well, neither one of us served during the war.
That's what's taken us so long getting through here. That's what I've been doing.
So where do you live now?
On Cloverdale right now.
Cloverdale. So you're local?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I've been waiting for years to get him down here.
He could come down here and be a docent here.
Well, he
on
could.
the boat.
Yeah.
He's been explaining all about it back there in his battle station.
What was your rate rank?
Electrician's mate first class.
Okay. EM first class. All right.
was
So you
on
spent a
the-
lot of time in that maneuvering room,
I
didn't you?
was in the maneuvering room,
Yeah.
propulsion period.
Well, we ought to put you down in a battery well just for old time's
I've
sake,
been
too.
down there.
Yeah.
Take a gravity, yeah?
I've seen a lot of them red lights and things like that. My head touches the ceiling, and I'll tell you, water and the batteries.
You know, we ain't got any batteries in the boat now.
I was wondering about that.
No.
Have you seen down in there?
No, here?
Yeah. No, down in the after battery.
No, I didn't go down.
You want to go down there?
No, what do they got down there now?
Well, it's a storeroom now.
Oh, storeroom, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's because it's here.
Yeah, yeah.
You need the batteries.
Yeah.
Well, come here a second. I'll.
Now this is the air manifold.
Yeah, it's the air manifold.
Blowing the tanks.
Yeah. Do you want to look down at the battery well? I've got a key for it. It's locked. That's why they.
Any lights down there?
What's that?
Any lights down there?
Oh,
So I
yeah,
can
there's lights down there.
poke this in there?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, but when the batteries are in there, you only got about.
No, see, that's why I want to show it to you because it's empty now. You
Looks a lot
probably
different.
1,000 times getting out of there.
getting out of there. Yeah.
Oh my God! Look at that.
You want to go down or not?
No, that's about.
50 volts DC to these lights. So the boat's back in the original condition.
Oh, I got you.
Okay, now that one rectifier that's on now is not big enough to handle things like the high pressure air compressor. So when we turn on the high pressure air compressor, we go down here and you can't see it, but way back aft is a huge rectifier. We've got two rectifiers down there, one small one and one big one. We're taking 110 volts off the dock, converting it to DC,
Right.
and then the boat thinks that's the battery.
Uh-huh.
So that's how we're operating the electricity on the boat. These are all these are 250 volt DC lights.
I'll be darned. That's okay.
We're looking down into the battery compartment, but there's no batteries down there. It's currently being used as a storage room. Probably won't be able to see much on this video.
That too.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, holes in your dungarees, right? A lot of holes in the dungarees. Right? Didn't they give you during my time? The electricians got an allowance for dungarees because they were all full of they were all full of acid.
You know what the chief of the boat told me one time when I was watering down there? He
No.
says, and I had a wrench with me too to tighten up, check some bolts and things.
Yeah.
He says, "Be careful with that wrench." He says, "You're a lot easier to replace
than the wrench.
than the battery. No, than the battery.
Oh, the batteries.
Yeah.
In other words, don't short them all
You spent
out.
9 patrols on the Tunny. Did you talk to him?
No, I didn't. Right.
9 patrols on the Tunny.
Sent Delfino, yeah, down the Tunny.
First class electrician. So he hadn't seen he didn't know there was no batteries in the boat.
We were with the Hellcats, you know, on that deal into the Sea of Japan, that last patrol.
Oh yeah, yeah.
9 of us boats went in.
Oh, that's right. Well, there was 9 boats went in there.
9 went in, 8 came out.
Who'd you lose? Which boat did you
We
lose?
lost the Bonefish.
The Bonefish. Yes.
Yeah, but
That was one of the last boats lost in the war.
They expected to lose 5 out of the 9 when we left. They told us.
Is that right?
Yeah, but it was a little hairy with mines. The mines were pretty heavily mined.
Oh yeah, that's kind of scary.
Sure.
I'm Al McDonald. I was on the Sea Devil.
The Sea Dog?
Sea Devil,
Sea Devil?
Yeah.
Okay.
SS 400.
Uh-huh. Was that during war, after
No,
war?
I was in during the Korean War.
Korean. Uh-huh. And this gentleman over
Same
here?
for me. My name is Harry Nystrom, and I was on the USS Greenfish during the Korean War. Same time with Al. Al and I almost met in submarine school. We were
Really?
2 months apart.
Yeah.
In submarine school.
Hmm.
So we
In
spent
Groton, Connecticut?
Yeah, in New London, Connecticut.
New London.
New London,
Okay.
Connecticut, and we spent most of our time, all of my time, in Pearl
Uh-huh.
at the sub base in Pearl.
Well, that's as far as I got during WW2. I got as far, I tell people I got as far west as the Japanese got east, but about 3.5 years later.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the control room, and you're seeing these red lights and low illumination, and that's the reason for that is to dilate your pupils so that are large for the lookouts that go up, and whatever officers that might go up on top side in order to watch for planes and etc. And actually, when they get up there and looking for planes, they see better out of the peripheral vision of their eye rather than looking straight ahead. And it's usually kept in this manner. This over here is a Christmas tree. What we call a Christmas tree anyway.
Got enough lights on it for a Christmas tree.
And what it is any opening to the outside of the boat it will show as green or red. Green being they're open and red being they're closed.
So if you're submerging, you want to see them all red.
Oh, pardon me.
Or that's
I've got to
wrong,
back
isn't
up
it?
on that.
That's wrong, isn't it?
Yes. Red, of course, is always the emergency. My mistake. Red being that they're open and green meaning that they're closed. So if you have a green board, you're free to go ahead and dive without any fear of flooding the boat. These are hydraulic levers that control all of those openings. Whether you want them open or closed, you do it hydraulically with these levers right here.
And these wheels here control the diving planes, I assume.
Yeah, this is your bow planes and stern planes. Your fins on the outside of the boat. This wheel over here is for the helm. You know, the rudder as to
Rudder.
your direction that you're going in.
Uh-huh.
This ladder goes up to the conning tower. And you'll see the two shafts up there, and maybe we'll get a chance to look at that later, for the periscopes that go up or down. Now, periscope depth, you will hear the word periscope depth. That's 60 feet deep. Whenever the skipper or whoever the officer in charge is here, he'll and want you to stabilize out at periscope depth, you're at 60 feet. And then they go up and they run their periscope up and out of the water a couple of feet or 18 inches and look around and see what we can find or what's going on.
Where would the fellow that's conning the boat be working, in that area up there?
That's doing what?
The officer that would be conning?
Officer of the day?
Yeah. Well, that's in control of the boat at the time, any particular time.
No, he'd be down here.
He'd be down here?
Yeah. He'd be down here or up at the conning tower.
Uh-huh.
Either way. The periscopes don't come down into this control room, so if you want to see out with the periscope, you have to go up. Now,
Depth gauge there.
down below here are equipment that produce, like compressors, that produce a 3,000 pound air pressure for blowing the tanks dry. Or you can open up the vents on them as well with hydraulics and flood the tanks in order to submerge. There's also a couple of what they call Klein evaporators down there to make fresh water out of the salt water. It doesn't make an awful lot, so water's a commodity.
Yeah. Tell me about this little chart here. Is that some kind of a automatic log of recording depths or what?
Well, I don't know. You're getting into the officer's end of it now. But it's probably, I don't really know that one. Exactly what it is.
It's just a chart, though.
Yeah. But whether it's a longitude or latitude, maybe if I put on my glasses, I might be able to decipher it. On our uniform, our outfits, actually naval uniforms, we have a dolphin, a silver pin with a dolphin with stars in it for so many patrols and etc. But above that, and most of all, in order to get dolphins put on your sleeves embroidered, you have to know the position of everybody's job so that you can take over in an emergency at any part of the boat. Mm-hmm. And it takes almost a year to really qualify for that.
I guess.
Now this is the officers' quarters you're coming into.
An old-fashioned typewriter here. I used to have one that was older than that. There's a newspaper over here that says war declared, St. Louis Star-Times. Some old Life magazines, National Geographic. I wonder what year it is.
And it's not only the officers' quarters, but it's also the forward battery.
Under the deck?
Yeah, see the hatch there to go down to it? And these are the officers' berths. There's three bunks per berth. The skipper's has got his own private bunk. This is probably it right here.
Just one bunk in the room, huh?
Yeah, but the others got multiple. And this is their place where they eat. The steward serves them as well as he serves us back there at the mess hall. This is their place to eat.
Did they have their own mess kitchen or not?
No, they have a little snack deal inside here where they eat, a little coffee pot or something like that. But all they got to do is just phone up the steward and he'll bring them whatever they want.
Whatever they want.
And I started fooling around. Like I would get on the phone and I'd call myself the Phantom. And that went on for about 1.5 years. And nobody did figure out who it was. And then I made a mistake and called the skipper one night by mistake and said, "This is the Phantom." He says, "I know you, Jim." And that put a stop to that.
He had you figured out. Huh?
Yeah, that put a stop to that. See, now, they have a little private deal here, too. They got a little ice box and coffee maker.
Yeah, there's a coffee maker here, too.
In case it's not meal time and they want something.
Hill's Brothers Coffee. Well, did you call it Joe like everybody else in the Navy did?
And this is the forward torpedo room.
Oh, we're already down that far, huh?
Yeah.
Well, let's see if I can get through this hatch.
There's quite a bit of gear in here. They have six tubes to fire torpedoes. On the forward end, you see there, and the inner doors are off, so you can see the inside of them. And they have 10 torpedoes as backup. Once those are used, we can reload and continue on. There's a total of 24 torpedoes between the after torpedo room and the forward torpedo room.
That's the maximum you could carry, huh?
That's the maximum, yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to get through here or not, Jim.
You go the other way, it's easier.
Well, I'm halfway now. I guess I'll have to keep going. Should have gone around all right.
There you are.
There. Well, they got a cutaway on this torpedo here. What was the propellant on these things? Compressed air?
No, let's see, what is it? The propellant.
Huh?
I know we carry 190 proof alcohol, which the guys used to steal and drink.
Well, sort of a turbine engine then?
It's
A piston engine?
I don't know. And some of these are electric, I know that, but I don't know about these. Not sure. As far as the actual mechanisms.
And they have counter-rotating propellers, so there's no what do you call it, yaw or no twisting motion anyway.
The forward
Offset
end,
one another.
Forward end has a nose piece that you strike. When it's stricken, it sets off the detonator that continues the explosion.
Well, how much of it would have explosives in it? About back to here somewhere?
Yes. Yes. Just about this whole section right here.
Mm-hmm.
The whole forward section.
What sort of explosive would it be?
Well, it's quite vulnerable.
Dynamite or?
Well, I think it would be probably more than dynamite, but what it is exactly, I don't know. But it's quite vulnerable, I know. Now you can see the inner doors and the outer doors. See, the outer doors are downstream, of course. And like I say, that time when they warped our outer doors and he had to torpedo them, we couldn't close them. And then they dropped more depth charges. And of course, the whole force came into the inner doors and started them to leak. And they started filling it up, which as soon as that happened, we were in enough trouble to where the hatch had to be closed and whoever was in the after torpedo room secured with it until the problem was solved.
Well, sure, a lot of mechanism and piping and so on the side of those tubes.
Yeah, there is a lot, and the torpedo man knows every one of them.
I guess.
Yeah. Now, we know the basics of it in order to get our Dolphin, but when it comes to the torpedoes, it takes a torpedo man to handle it, that's for sure.
Yeah. You never had to do it, huh?
No.
Mom, there's a shower.
That would be like putting him on a control room, in a maneuvering room, you know. He would know.
Not so much to learn.
Mom. Go up there. Can we go up here now?
Now, your sonar and stuff equipment is in this compartment too. It's
What is?
sonar, the one that sends
Oh,
out.
sonar?
Yeah, it's usually in the back wall here.
Can we go up here? Now come on.
This is a forward.
Can we go back up? Forward. Can we go back up? Go back up. Come on, let's go. Now let's go.
Hold on.
How'd you kids like to be on a submarine at war? Wouldn't like it, huh?
I never lived here. I didn't like it.
Does she
Well, this
never
gentleman
live
here did that.
Oh, wow. He was on one of these, you guys. He lived in a submarine.
Long time.
Must have been really cramped. Oh, I couldn't
Maybe they were
imagine.
cramped because they didn't live home because he lives in the ocean.
Yeah, he'd be in the ocean.
I'm claustrophobic.
Here you can see the air mat, the mattresses, but then you see they put the leather casings around. It never gets below 110 degrees, and you wake up in the morning when you sleep in these here, and you're in your own perspiration halfway up your body.
Oh,
Yeah. If you smell too pretty, you didn't belong in a submarine.
Come on, let's go.
okay.
Bunks everywhere where there's a space.
Right. How long were you on a submarine?
Well, I was 4 years in the service, but on the sub 3.
That must have been really hard.
You see those little locker rooms up there?
Uh-huh.
Remember when I told you that hoist? You see the hook over here now, the snatch block for the hook to raise the torpedoes to reload? The spare ones? Well, and my bunk was the top bunk.
Yeah.
Well, after that broke off and broke my bunk and dropped me to the floor, after that I kept my personal locker open and kept my head in there while I was sleeping.
Sounds like a good idea.
Yeah.
The locker was right next to your head then, huh?
What was your job? What did you do?
I was in the maneuvering room in charge of propulsion.
That was the first thing, second thing you came in the rear there where all the levers were.
I remember.
That was his battle station.
Go back up.
Okay, let's go.
I guess there'll be no one up this small
That's about all the storage you have on the sub, too. You had to leave all your personal belongings on the mothership.
You had what?
All your personal belongings that you collect along the way and in the service you leave on the mothership. Every set of subs has a mothership somewhere.
Uh-huh.
And
A submarine tender? Is that what?
it's a submarine tender.
Yeah.
In fact, 15 years after I got out of the Navy, they called me up and says, "Hey, we have your duffel bag. You want it?"
Oh. What'd you tell him?
I told them no.
No. You should have said yeah.
I I had a very important Lufkin slide rule in there too, a real expensive one. I used to be able to operate a slide rule for mathematics,
Yeah,
and unfortunately I would have.
that was before computers.
No, we got a lot of. He could pay a little hand.
Yeah, well, I had one of those too.
This is much more modern compared to, I only found out about 2 months ago. My grandfather was killed in 1927 in Portsmouth Harbour in England, well, just outside it actually. His submarine was split in two
Oh, really?
on the surface by another submarine,
Oh.
and he drowned. He was the chief engineer, because he was in the engine room. Because when it got split in two, he couldn't get out, so he drowned.
Well, that was unfortunate. Did that in harbor?
Just outside. The submarine that hit him was coming round the Irish coast to come back to Portsmouth. It was very foggy, apparently. They didn't have radar, of course, in those days. So he knew nothing about it. Bang.
Well, my dad was on submarines after World War I for, well, he was only in the Navy about a year and a half, but he had training on submarines.
We had nuclear just not too long ago surface and sank, what was it, Japanese or?
Huh?
They sank that fishing boat.
Oh,
That was out in the Hawaii area,
yeah,
wasn't
just
it?
off of Oahu,
Yeah.
Pearl Harbor.
Make an emergency rise to the surface there and hit him.
That's right.
It's still going on. They're still investigating that.
Well, like the captain's trying to blame the crew, and the crew is saying, well, hang on, we only do what you tell us to. You're always, if you're the captain, then you're the man that takes full responsibility for everything, I thought.
Right.
You're totally in charge.
Well, I assume you're from British Isle somewhere?
Yes.
Where?
South coast.
England?
Place called Eastbourne, which is between, let's say, Brighton and Dover. So I've got 22 miles between ourselves and the French coast.
White Cliffs of Dover.
Not quite, but certainly along there.
Light colored anyway.
And in fact,
Well,
last year...
During the war there was a song about the White Cliffs of Dover.
There'll be Bluebirds Over,
Yeah.
sung by Vera Lynn, or Dame as she became. But in November last year, we just had Walt Disney doing a lot of filming. I woke up one morning to hear the sound of a Spitfire flying around, and I loved that sound. And then I heard a Messerschmitt, but it had the same sound, because this was a Spanish-built Messerschmitt with a Rolls-Royce Merlin engine in it, which was a bit confusing. But
Didn't
anyway.
sound right, huh?
Well, not really. And then there was a DC-3, and some pals of mine were staying that weekend, and they came up and they said to me, Charles, this is marvellous, you put this wonderful show on for us, how on earth did you do this? And we discovered it was Walt Disney's company filming Pearl Harbor. And I couldn't work out why he was filming Pearl Harbor on the south coast of England. What he's trying to do is to give you a sort of what was going on in Europe, and then it switched over to the Japanese invasion of Pearl Harbor.
Well, most stories of World War II, it's a two-ocean war for this country.
So when the film comes out in May, I shall be looking forward to seeing
Well,
it.
it's coming out before too long.
On the ground.
I've been hearing about it too. I guess I'll have to go see it.
Yeah. Nice to meet you, chaps. I'm going to wander up.
Okay. Have a good trip.
Thank you.
Hard time getting through the hole. You were a little bit thinner back then. Well, I was about 30 pounds. Not a whole lot. Did they,
5 inch there.
Yeah, I did, from inside this doorway. This hatchway, pardon me. Now we get another one over here.
You want to go to the conning tower?
You want to go in the conning tower?
Sure.
Take a look, Les?
Sure. You?
Yeah.
Ah.
The only time I ain't ever gotten to conning tower is I had to come up and fix the searchlight that was blinking and coming on at night out there.
All right, what we got to do to do this, we got to go through here. Here, I'll hold that up for you.
I'm not sure. What are these for? These are number boats or something?
No, that's ammunition.
Oh, that's ammunition?
We're going to go up into the conning tower.
We'll get
Private tour here.
got to duck under here. He's always down the maneuvering room.
Have me be a gunner now, huh? Oh, God.
You ever use your 5-inch on Tunny?
We usually gun. You bet your life, but not me. The gunner, the gun.
Yeah. What'd you blow out of the water with it?
You don't remember.
Don't even know that, huh?
There was some sampan or something, but
Oh.
one of them. But what got me is they got in a boat, a rowboat, and started to row away. And we were missing it so bad, they brought back to the sampan.
You know, that's really true. Submarine gunners they're notoriously bad.
It was safe.
Couldn't even hit it?
It was
You're safer on the sampan. I grab right here. And then you got stuck under those.
Okay? Yeah.
All right, you want to hand me that?
Cruise boat pulling out over there.
How do you do? How do you do? How do you do?
Okay, we're now in the conning tower, and it's nothing more than literally a tank sitting on top of the rest of the submarine that's down below us through this hatch. The submarine is actually steered by this helm over here, and you can probably see it with the white seizing around the periphery of the helm. Then we have over here number 1 periscope, and this is the number 2 periscope. The number 1 periscope is used for observation. It's a bigger periscope and has a bigger cross-section, and you can see more from that number 1 periscope.
Wider angle?
Wider angle and a lot bigger area.
Oh, I see.
We would raise the scope until we got close, and then when you got real close, then you would lower this one and raise this one for the attack. They actually call this is the observation scope, and this is the attack scope.
Uh-huh.
Okay. When we were at battle stations, there would be 12 men up here. You can imagine. 12 guys.
Good.
12 guys. The skipper, the executive officer, and then we had a guy. This is called the. By the way, you should probably look at this thing. You could have never filmed this 20 years ago,
Yeah.
30 years ago. It's called the torpedo data computer, and this is how we fired the torpedoes. We would put in the angles and the necessary data, and it would be cranked in by these things here, where you would turn these knobs and you would crank in the different angles that you needed to fire.
What was it they called that thing? I read a lot of submarine books, and they had a word for it.
The TDC?
Maybe that's
Torpedo
it.
data computer, or
Okay.
TDC.
All right.
Okay? And here is the firing mechanism for firing the torpedoes right over here. There's the 4 tubes aft, 1, 2, 3, 4, and the 6 tubes forward. And this is actually the firing mechanism right here. You'd set up the tube by turning this to the standby position, and when they wanted to fire, you actually shove that plunger in, and that fired the torpedo.
They weren't fired from down below, then they're actually fired from up here.
They were fired electrically from up here,
Yeah.
but the torpedo men were always standing by, ready to fire manually.
Oh, I see.
So they would set it up here, and they would fire by pushing that button. If this failed for some reason, then they would fire it manually from the torpedo room itself.
Yeah.
But primarily they tried to fire electrically from up here using these firing pins right here.
And how would they know when to press the button?
To fire the torpedo?
I mean, when would they know the alignment is right so that hopefully it would hit?
This was all done by this torpedo data computer right here. And it really has to do with solving a right triangle. I don't know if you're familiar with trigonometry, but
vaguely.
they have to get the right angles. And if you look up here, it says there's a target course and the target range and the target bearing. Once you know these things, and once you track the target, then you can plug in using these dials to get the right correct angles. And then this thing actually solves the problem for you. And when it comes up, there's a red light that says correct solution. And when the solution is correct, then this thing tells you exactly when to fire the torpedo.
Mm-hmm. A little light come on, or?
Yep, correct solution right there. And by the way, this thing still works.
Oh, really?
It absolutely still works, yes.
Maybe you could sink the Jeremiah back there.
Yeah, we could. Yeah, we could.
I went out on it about 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah?
A little cruise out on the bay, where I got this hat.
Is that right?
Yeah.
This is actually,
Oh my goodness.
see? All of these things, I don't want to turn them all on, but that actually, all of the things are working back there.
Huh. Well, you could go to sea and
Not quite.
go to battle then.
Not quite. Don't have any warheads on the torpedoes.
Understand all this up here, Jim? This is all new to you, huh?
This is new what he's telling me now, because you don't need that to get the dolphin on your sleeve.
That's right. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And this is all sound gear over here, underwater sound. It's old ancient stuff now, and the sound man would sit here on this on a stool, and then he would operate these levers back and forth like this, and turn sound heads that are down in the forward torpedo room.
I see.
But this is pretty ancient, archaic gear now.
Yeah. Everything on this probably is.
Well, it's all 50 years old.
Well, yeah.
We're ancient and archaic.
Yeah.
I know I am, for sure.
This is where you raise the periscopes, over here.
Oh.
And we can't raise them right now because we don't have the hydraulic systems in line and the air systems in line. But we can actually raise these periscopes.
This is one of them here, too?
That's one of them there, too, right.
Hey, Harry?
Yeah.
You don't happen to see a blower up there, do you? A Red Devil blower?
A blower?
Yeah, a little air blower.
Didn't look for one, but what does it look like? I mean, is it electric or what?
Yeah, it's electric, about that big. It's got about 15 feet of suction.
Oh, okay. It's like a vacuum cleaner, but the other way, right?
Yeah.
What color? Black?
It's red, actually.
Red? Okay. Jim, I don't see it.
Okay.
Not up here.
Yeah, I'll bet you they took it to Alameda. All right, thank you.
Yeah.
See you in a while.
Okay. $600 a month.
You took a big pay cut to ride one of these.
Yeah, you sure did.
Down to $21.
29. That's right. Yeah.
Well, we didn't make much money, but we had lots of fun, I guess.
Yeah. But I don't know, I just wanted to go.
Yeah.
Well, I got a picture of the flag raising.
Oh, did you really? Oh, good. Okay. I didn't even notice that. Jim?
Yeah.
This thing is still working. Where's the switch down there? You remember?
Is that the blinker?
You remember you were telling a story about you had to come up and fix this thing?
Yeah, and you can imagine a maneuvering man trying to go down those stairs at night on a dive.
Yeah.
I heard those vents go off too.
You heard those vents and you said, I'm out of here. Right there, isn't it? Yeah, flashlight or do you need one?
I guess that's the signalman's blinker.
Yeah.
Well, you know Marty Bauman, don't you?
Yeah.
He was a signalman on some kind of a ship, APA or something of the sort.
Ah, never mind. I thought you might not. I don't know where it is either. Yeah, I knew you threw it because I started seeing the thing of light.
It was cold, dark that night too. No moon.
Ah, never mind. Never mind. Get him take your hat off. You're shaded. Your hat's... Yeah, that's it.
I've never seen him with that hat off.
All right.
We had fun today. Glad we did it finally.
Great time.
Well, we owe a big debt of thanks to these fellows for really giving us a grand tour.
Come through. All right.
Real appreciation.
Take your hat off. Take your hat off. We'll get you here with the gun.
I think he's a professional photographer.
He is a professional photographer.
No, I'm not. I'm just
turn it off?
Yeah. Well, I took my hand off it.
Well,
Oh, it's still recording? Oh.
yeah.
I screwed up. So what do I do now? How do I...
Press
So again.
Uh-huh.
You probably did.
Yeah, it did. I'm sure it did. Well, we're at number 9 Fisherman's Grotto. In spite of the sign over there that says Aliotas, that's next door. Well, we're right here at Fisherman's Wharf. There's all fishing boats out here in the harbor. San Francisco skyline up there.
Alcatraz.
Yeah.